Hey, Kevin here, Mr. DIY Dork from DIYDork.com. Today I want to show you a really cool Target table transformation where I turn a cheap kind of dorm style side table that I got in the clearance section of Target for $4.48 to a really cool reclaimed wood coffee table. So check this out, I know you're going to like it. Alright, so I told you there was one last tweak to do before we assemble this, but before we get into it, I actually had to pull the whole thing apart, and that way I can use a little bit of this wax. I'm going to wax the wood to protect it, because I want to keep it as natural looking as I can, but still be protected from, you know, someone drops food on here or something like that. And then I also want to work on the trim, so I'll show you what I'm doing with that. Alright, so here's the trim that's going to go around the top of the table. And right now it's just raw wood. I have it sanded down with 120 grit, which is not super smooth if you're a person that likes to finish furniture, but for waxing it'll be fine, and for the effect I'm about to show you. So what I was going to do is the planks, I was going to keep the raw wood with just the wax, so they're protected a little bit, but they're as close to natural color as they can get. And then I was going to take the trim and I was going to put like a darker stain on it. But pine always acts a little weird sometimes if you get the wrong color, and it was just the ugliest brown I'd ever seen. So I actually had to remake a lot of the trim because I couldn't get it off. So what I decided to do was to use spray paint as kind of like a stain. And because I'm making 3 tables and one's going to have white legs, one's having metallic silver legs, and the other has gloss gray legs, I decided to use that spray paint, like I said, for a stain. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a really bad paint job on it with spray paint, so not totally covering it, but getting it covered for the most part, so it kind of looks like that, kind of splotchy, but it's mostly gray everywhere. I like those pieces there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand them down so that it gets a really cool effect. So I'll show you what that looks like next. Let me show you that effect I was talking about on the trim. Now that the paint has dried, I'm taking my 120 grit sandpaper. I'm going over it pretty light, just enough where the paint starts to come off, so kind of like this. Okay, now I'm going to go over that a little bit more, and it's going to end up looking like this. Really cool effect where the high spots and low spots of the wood grain, basically the high spots the paint will sand off, and the low spots it'll keep the paint. Just a really cool look. So it'll be some interesting trim to go around the tabletop. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to finish up the rest of these, and then I'll show you how to put them together and that little tweak I was talking about earlier. Alright, so now all the trim is finished. So we've got white there, the silver there, and then the dark gray here. So it's time to assemble it. And this is the tweak that I've been talking about. I got all the boards laid upside down, and I got them all flush against the straight edge here. And I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I numbered all the boards and I lettered them so I'd know which board goes in which position, so that would line up with these little gray support pieces. Now I could just line it up, have my 1/4 inch on each edge, put screws in, and it would be put together, except it doesn't quite work with these legs, and let me show you why. Okay, I partially assembled one of the legs here, and if you notice, there's a little bit of a lip to it. Do you see how the leg piece here is a little bit thicker than the little gray piece here? And what happens is when this lays flush and it actually straightens out, it's going to leave a gap. See how you can see through there? So what I've decided to do to take care of that is to go ahead and just use some washers. And all I'm going to do is basically use them as spacers. So every hole is going to have 2 washers. So each hole have 2 washers. A little bit of a pain in the butt when you're screwing it together, but it will work fine. I've done it on the first one I assembled it, and it worked great. So that's what I'm going to do with these. I'm going to have them so that it just slightly floats above, and it gives us plenty of room to go in there, and it'll be fine. So let me show you when it's all assembled. All right, and check it out. I got it all screwed together. It's one nice solid unit now. And then look at this. Even the leg fits really nice now. And I kept the Allen screws there, the original yellow, just for a little fun. But let me switch the mode here real quick. And you can see the washers are spacing it so that the leg fits good. So there's a real good view of what I was talking about there. So now this thing fits real good. And the leg, I mean, this thing is strong. So it's gonna be really cool. So now all we gotta do is, well, of course I have to attach the leg over here, and then I'll show you how to put the trim on, which is really simple, and I'm just using a really cool technique. just for an interesting, really simple, basic look, and this table will be done. So let me show that to you next. All right, check it out. I have the legs on there mounted good now, and I even have the trim up. And all I did was I used an air nailer because it would be fast and easy, and I just nailed it about every 6 inches. So there's like one there, you know, roughly there, just enough to hold it on. And then where the pieces overlapped, I even threw one in there to kind of close them up. But if you notice the layout I used, it overlaps here, and then it's dead even with the, you know, the wood top, and it does it all the way around. So it kind of, it's like a fan design almost, you know, just a real basic overlap. Instead of having to miter the edges and all that, I like this look instead. Keeps it kind of simple and modern. So how about I flip this thing over and I'll show you what it all looks like finished. All right, and there we go. Here's how the table turned out. Very, very cool look, and I really like the contrast of the gray trim with the more natural colored wood planks. And I'm just surprised at how well these things look, because it really did look like someone got murdered in that bathroom from all the water stains on the floor and all that kind of stuff. But with a little sanding and a little elbow grease, and of course a little bit of wax, they turned out very cool. And they still feature some of the original holes and gouges and nicks and marks and things like that, which is, you know, a very cool look in my mind. I think it gives a lot of character and doesn't just look like a brand new board from the store. And then of course the trim with the sanded effect I showed you is very cool, you know, kind of a modern distressed look. And then with the layout of the trim, that fan overlap I was talking about, I really like that. And it keeps things simple, so you don't have to worry about mitering edges and screwing it up and all that kind of stuff. And this is totally a table that could have been built with hand tools. You know, everything could have been built with the most basic tools, which is something I like to do with projects like this. So that's the gray table. Let me show you the white and the silver tables. Okay, now on the white table, the trim was really, really washed out, so there's a ton of contrast. And another thing I did was when I sanded the boards, I laid them out so that it was dark, light, dark, light, dark, just for, you know, a little more contrast. And then of course here's the board that had the metal embedded in it. I put it right in the center as kind of a feature. And then on the silver table here, I was a little iffy about silver on the wood, so I sanded this one a little more, and it turned out very cool. You know, we got a lot of metallic on the legs, and then just a little bit of metallic shown through in spots. And it, you know, it neutralized out that silver a lot, and it turned out really cool. So anyway, these are how the tables turned out, and a very simple project, and it looked way different than you know, the original little, you know, 17 by 17, you know, dorm table or whatever. By using a little bit of reclaimed wood and a little bit of imagination, it turned out into something really, really awesome.